According to Statistica and the US State Department, 800,000 people are trafficked per year around the globe. Many are just children, with around 65% being women. Human trafficking is defined by the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crimes as the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of people through force, fraud, or deception with the aim of exploiting them for a profit. Or in layman's terms, the unlawful transfer of humans with the aim to reduce a profit. This is a global issue that many international and domestic forces have tried to tackle. However, these responses are only somewhat effective at addressing the issue. Signed and ratified in 2000 by 197 parties, the Palermo Protocols focused on tackling human trafficking with an umbrella approach. However, this protocol only managed to scrape the surface of the problem. The protocol itself has three main goals: to combat trafficking, to assist victims, and to promote cooperation. It achieves the latter with success, as it allows for nations to share information on individuals suspected of trafficking and provides reparations for victims of trafficking. This allows it to effectively meet societal expectations. However, the protocol fails at effectively combating trafficking, as it does not force nations into signing, nor does it help signatories enforce the law with economic or political help. Combining this with how any nation can drop out of the protocol at any time leads to it failing to be properly enforceable. The UN is not the only international organization that has tried to combat human trafficking. The Council of Europe has been involved in setting up proper legislation to combat this issue as well. The Council of Europe's Convention on Action Against Trafficking in Human Beings was introduced in 2005, with it focusing on assisting victims and promoting cooperation between European nations. Like the Palermo Protocols, it is ineffective at enforcing law, as it provides little way to do so. However, it did establish a monitoring mechanism to aid in the capture of human traffickers, leading it to be a step up from the previous protocol. The international community has provided a proper base and provided a uniform way of dealing with human trafficking that can be effective at promoting cooperation. But as seen with the Palermo Protocols and the European Convention Against Trafficking, these have not been able to effectively enforce the law on domestic occasions, as the legislation provides no real mechanism to do so. Another form of international action against human trafficking is non-government organizations, or NGOs. These are groups that work independently from governments to help raise and spread awareness for various topics. This non-legal approach to the topic can lead to vast change in the legal system and help effectively address human trafficking while protecting individual rights. Many NGOs are dedicated to tackling the issue of modern slavery and human trafficking. One such example is anti-slavery, which focuses on tackling slavery worldwide. Part of this involves combating human trafficking across the world. They managed to do this in 2009 when they successfully lobbied against the British government, which led them to ratify the Council of Europe's Convention Against Trafficking in Human Beings. This action would then be followed up in 2010 in coordination with Liberty Led, saw the UK government reform forced labour into a criminal offence. This action and lobbying would lead to the victims of trafficking to gain more rights and protections in the legal system. Another group that has effectively challenged human trafficking is the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women. This group focuses on tackling female sex trafficking, as according to the UNDOC, 92% of detected sex trafficking victims are female. This group has successfully advocated for systems that help protect the rights of female trafficking victims, such as the Swedish equality model, which focuses on decriminalising prostitution for victims of sex trafficking and setting up compensation schemes. Both of these NGOs have effectively raised awareness and stood up for the victims of trafficking. In doing so, they effectively protect the rights and force governments to keep up to date. Human trafficking is not just an international issue, but it is also an issue that is currently present here in Australia. Because of this, legislation and amendments have been put forth in an attempt to combat this. However, in many cases, justice was not fully achieved, leaving to domestic legislation to fall flat and fail to be effective. One such legislative example is the Criminal Code Act 1995, which in parts outlines the maximum sentencing for slavery-like acts as well as other crimes. Under Division 270.7, human trafficking is shown to have a maximum sentence of 7 years, while violent trafficking is given 9. This legislation was tested in February 2017, when Boi Sun Chen and Yu Hao Huang, two Chinese nationals were tried for human trafficking and forced servitude charges. This occurred after they were found to be running a scam call center containing 49 victims, all Chinese immigrants. They used threats of deportations, restrictions on common needs, and zero pay to control their victims. However, at sentencing, the pair got off lax, Huang only having served 3 years, while Chen only got 2.5. This shows the Australian system has failed to effectively achieve justice for their victims. Even if it got the maximum 7 years for the crime, this is arguably not enough. Another case that supports this is from November 2017, in which a 29-year-old man from Lidcombe, Sydney, was charged with trafficking 2 victims from Sydney to India. The victim told the police that she feared for her life and the safety of a child. The man also attempted to revoke their visa status to Australia. However, when the woman managed to return, she contacted Anti-Slavery Australia, who, with help from the Australian Federal Police, arrested the man. However, when it came to sentencing, he only got 21 months. With both these cases in mind, it can be seen that the Australian legal system is unprepared to effectively achieve justice for the victims of trafficking, as has been shown multiple times that justice is not served at sentencing. Legal responses are not the only kind in Australia. Many other sources, such as the media, help the Australian government stay up to date and meet society's needs. One such example is a case from 2015 when Fairfax Media and its subsidiary, the Sydney Morning Herald, ran an investigation into the popular convenience store chain 7-Eleven. In it, they uncovered multiple human rights violations, such as workers being half of what they were owed, some being paid less than $1 an hour, and threats of deportation if they don't comply. Most of this was revealed after a whistleblower came out. He stated in the article, "Head office is not just turning a blind eye, it is a fundamental part of their business." This article provided the final blow needed to stop the corrupt and illegal operations occurring. In the fallout, Fair Work Australia conducted an investigation and set up a $30 million compensation fund for the victims, while both the CEO and founder of 7-Eleven Australia resigned. This one article managed to save countless victims from trafficking and forced labour. It shows how the media can use their influence to force reform and effectively meet society's need for both pay and justice in 7-Eleven. With all this in mind, it can be seen that in both Australia and international responses to human trafficking have only been somewhat effective. This is because many international legislation and protocols lack the ability to effectively enforce their charges over governing bodies, while at home Australian law and practice shows us that it does not effectively achieve justice with lax sentencing. However, this is countered by the works of NGO and the media, who manage to cover the tracks of the worldwide legal systems, and both protect the rights of victims and meet their needs.